Clark is coming to town for the Will County GOP Freedom Day dinner.
Yes, and it's sponsored by the Will County Republican Central Committee. For tickets, which start at $100, visit freedomdaydinner.com, freedomdaydinner.com. It is tomorrow night, Friday at 7 p.m. at the Renaissance Center in Joliet. Again, Sheriff David Clark, Mike Burke, gubernatorial candidates Gary Rabine, and State Senator Darren Bailey will be there, among others.
For more on this and a little talk about Republican Party politics in Illinois, please be joined by George Pearson, who is a political analyst for WGN-TV and chairman of the Will County GOP. George, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. How are you two?
Good morning. Freedom Day dinner. What happened to Lincoln Day dinner? Are you canceling Abraham Lincoln, George Pearson?
Absolutely not. Well, because of the pandemic and had everyone on a lockdown still and didn't want to take a chance on any of our businesses in Will County losing their license over our dictatorial governor, we decided to move it to June, which, again, because it's been recognized as freedom for a lot of different things, from Juneteenth celebration to opening up spring and, President Trump's birthday. So we figured Freedom Day dinner would be a nice little ring in the month of June.
Now, are Gary Rabine and Darren Bailey going to have a debate, or is it going to be cordial?
That's a great question. We're creating a forum so that all the gubernatorial candidates will have an opportunity, Paul Shannon, Max Solomon, Darren Bailey, and Gary Rabine, to be on the stage to answer the questions and, if necessary, challenge one another. I love competition, and I believe that's one of the things that are missing in our party. We tend to pick one side, and that's who we run with, and that has gotten us in trouble over the last 20 years. And I could name a couple of politicians right here in Illinois on the Republican side that have, caused a lot of this. What we want, is open debate. We want a dialogue between them and the voters. This is about the voters. We're bringing in Sheriff David Clark and John Contazera, president of FOP Lodge number 7. We've got Illinois Supreme Court Justice Mike Burke to talk about, some of the things that are coming up with the mapping and some of the legislation. We want a very robust debate for all our voters so that they're well informed and pull a Republican ballot this June 28, 2022.
Well, as I said in previewing our talk, you're one of the bright spots in terms of local leaders in the Republican Party. Now, that said, that's a low bar, but nonetheless, one of the bright spots. Yeah, he is, and you're willing to call out bad actors in the party, which has been something that's been sorely needed for a couple of generations. I wonder how you think the Illinois Republican Party and the various Republican office holders, the few that are left, performed during the pandemic.
They didn't perform well. They didn't perform well because of, there were a lot of different factors in there. A lot of people did not know what was going on. And I believe that's all of our fault, because we've allowed our governments on both the federal and the state level to become so large that we depend on them to make our decisions for us on a daily basis. We have to start becoming more educated. Therefore, we don't rely on the politicals to make decisions. They work from the little bit of information that they were being spoon-fed. If we honestly start electing people that will be represented by the people and representing the voices of the people, then you'll find we'll have more open dialogue and get to the truth, which we saw happening with President Trump.
And so, what do you expect going forward? It seems to me that Pritzker has had the run of the field and the run of the suburbs as Democrats have continued to really take over suburban Chicagoland, including Will County. Will County Board.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen for the Republican Party to be relevant, if not competitive, in the suburbs and by extension statewide? Do we have to talk about what K through 12 education should look like? Are we going to talk about the lessons from the pandemic? I hear Darren Bailey talking about it a little bit, but I don't hear much from any Republicans.
Yeah, I completely agree, 100%. There are all different types of groups that are spawning up all over the place, Dan and Amy. You've got an organization called YANA, You Are Not Alone. And a lot of these folks are moms, school soccer moms and dads that are finally deciding, you know what, our silence has been part of the problem here. They're not showing up to the school board meetings. They're not showing up to their county board or their village board meetings. Again, if you want to see the change, we have to stop looking to the people that have been sitting in these spots for so long. We have to start looking at ourselves. Michael Jackson's song, "The Man in the Mirror," it starts with you. We need election judges.
Can you
do a couple of bars from that for us?
Yeah.
You say you got
No.
I don't think you got the upper register that he had, but
no, not at all.
All right.
We need election judges. If I can,
this
go ahead. Point is very important. If in fact you want to make sure that you have ballot integrity, election integrity, we need election judges. Don't get me wrong, poll watchers are important. They're secondary. We need election judges. So people out there that are listening, don't be afraid to ask for a Republican ballot in June 28th, 2022. And don't be afraid to work as the election judge.
Well, how is that going to help?
We need you at these locations.
Okay,
because election judges touch the ballots. We saw all throughout the channels.
Sometimes they fill them out.
Yeah. In Chicago, probably. But that's why we need our Republicans sitting at the table, too, looking at those ballots. So if they're missing a signature, they're missing a date, the signatures don't match, the address is no longer a valid address. We should be rejecting those ballots. But time and time again, we've seen over and over again. Hell, right here in Will County, we rejected over 2,000 ballots in the last election cycle. So, how do we change this? It starts with each and every single one of us doing our part. This is a citizen participation. When you sit back and you allow the politicals and the elites to do it, this is what the government should get.
I can't help but think about those Trump rallies last year. I'm talking about the ones actually in Illinois that were organized by Tom Meredith, and who's not a political guy. And it wasn't run through Republican Party organizations. It wasn't didn't have Republican state legislators. And I mean, he was putting 5,000 and 10,000 people on fairgrounds fields around the metropolitan area. These are people that are clearly not participating in Republican Party politics in this state, in this area. And of course, this goes completely unreflected upon by most of whatever passes for the Republican Party. And it just seems to me that, like, I don't know, when 5,000 or 10,000 people supporting a Republican president show up to rally for him in absentia, maybe that is a market opportunity. Or is that me?
For you to actually be there and be engaged. Absolutely. But you know where we also failed? We didn't turn around and re-engage with those folks, those 5,000. We had 750 people show up to one of our rallies. We messed up. We didn't get everybody's name and contact information so that we can say we need to fill those spots.
Yeah. Well, but it also speaks to, like, why are those people coming out? What is it that is so attractive to them? Maybe that is something that should be considered. Gosh, what are we not doing to generate that sort of enthusiasm, right?
Yeah. We're open, plain talk dialogue. We're not, well, I know we're on Salem radio station, so I have to watch my language as well.
Exactly. Keep it clean.
We're not tiptoeing. Yeah, we're not tiptoeing around the issues. I don't do it. Down in Will County, I believe it's one of the reasons why we're starting to see a turnaround here. Look, Will County was divided up into 6 congressional districts, 20 different state Senate districts. It has been a shambles, and the Democrats had control of the last 2 maps. And that's a problem when you're trying to get people engaged. And most folks out here, they're almost too afraid to pull a Republican ballot because they don't want to be shamed. So we actually have to buck up. You got to have the same courage that Donald Trump was out there showing.
Yeah.
You have to have the same courage that we see from Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott down in Texas. We have to see that type of courage bubbling up from each and every single one of our elected officials in order to continue to inspire those to get up off their duffs and go out there and work the polls, knock doors, make phone calls, heck, make a contribution. If you're tired of your politicians being ruled by D.C. or Springfield, then open up your wallet and contribute to those candidates. Therefore, you have a say in what's going on. And if they don't, then you fund their competition in the primary. Right. That's where we have been failing.
Yeah, and I'll make a contribution if somebody makes an argument. You know, I mean, we're seeing, in addition to COVID-19, where most of the GOP here were church mice, critical race theory in the schools, that intellectual poison. And you're seeing revolts in Loudoun County, Virginia, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, all over the country. And obviously Republican governors taking some action too. And yet here, I mean, you had that one father down in Decatur who gave the school board chapter and verse, which was great. But you don't see it up here. I mean, you see it from like 9-year-old children. You see the children are courageous enough to stick their necks out. And probably their parents are too, which is why the children.
Yes,
do it.
and we don't hear from that. That Naperville,
where are they?
Plainfield, that area,
Where
New
are they?
Lenox. Oh, you ought to see these parents out here in New Lenox and Frankfurt that are pushing back on CRT, pushing back on this nonsense, pushing back on HB 3653, this law enforcement bill, which inspired this Freedom Day dinner. Again, they're there. We're having these conversations. We just don't always get the right coverage for it. So when you say that, they're not involved with a lot of the Republican organizations, you're absolutely right. And again, that's a failure on our part, but we're changing that. We're reaching out to folks. We're saying groups like Yana, we get it. You don't want the title of the Republican just yet, but everything you're fighting for right now, you don't want your children masked this coming school cycle. You don't want your children to be forced to take a vaccination that's, I think is one of the biggest trial that has ever occurred in the medical history, with the shots that are out there. Pick your poison on the branding of it. You have to show up. You can no longer sit at home. And we saw that in New Lenox. We saw it in Frankfurt, Plainfield, Newton, Naperville. These children are being inspired that might be coming up, but you damn sure better believe there's a parent behind them teaching them.
Yeah, and look, I hate to play this game, but this is the reality, and it's important to have leadership from black men like you in the Republican Party. I mean, we've had this conversation with Bob Woodson and Shelby Steele and others too. It's like we need black conservative leadership within conservative leadership to really lead some of these fights, whether it comes to K through 12 curriculum or COVID or economic opportunity or any policy area. All policy areas need that sort of leadership because it's sort of jujitsuing so many of these, PC-addled identitarians in the suburbs who want to come after you and just be able to call you a name and walk away. It's much more difficult to do that with when they're doing it to George Pearson.
Yeah, George Pearson has been a target for a lot of this for a long time. I don't care. I'm used to getting shot at. We have a lot of these brothers out there. A.J. White, Fred Banyan in Chicago. There's so many of them. Devin Jones. They are out there. They are there. We are out here with the fight. It's becoming difficult to get, again, the right coverage. Let folks know. I mean, right here in Chicago, in Cook County, you saw an increase in black males voting for President Trump.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they finally saw some stones coming out of the party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you want actually more black men, because we are pretty strong by nature, then we also have to see some strength coming from those that are sitting in leadership as well.
Well, that is a challenge that persists. There's no question. He is George Pearson. He is a political analyst for WGN-TV. He's also the chairman of the Will County GOP. And Amy, those deets on tomorrow night's dinner?
Again, to get tickets, because there are seats available, go to freedomdaydinner.com, freedomdaydinner.com.
George Pearson, thanks as always for joining us. Good luck with the dinner tomorrow. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Richard Uline, Mayor Roger Clare, and Robert Cruz.
All right.
Very good.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. During our lowest prices of the season, the new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Only for a limited time. To learn more,